Hello, it's Shari here, and I am going to be making a card with the new screen time set using some Chibitronics to make the little TV screen light up from behind. So this is the new screen time set, and I've actually sort of sketched out the idea for my card here, which I do this often, I just don't always show you in my videos. And the red part is where I'm going to be cutting the hole for the light to shine through. So I've got a card base here out of mermaid cardstock, and I've figured out all the patterns that I want. So the stripy wallpaper, the blue is the couch, the yellow is the floor, and then the purple will be where the TV is going to sit. So I did take some time to figure out which patterns work well. Now for the couch, this is one of the large plaids, and I'm actually just going to trace the couch that I sketched. And it's a very simple couch. I'm going to put it up on my window so I can see through it. You could also use a light table, or something I used to do a lot when I was younger. We had a glass top dining room table, and I would just put a desk lamp and point it upwards. So you've got a couple options if you want to trace. So I'm just going to trace it in pencil. And I used the orthogonal side of the plaid because it's going to help me draw my lines straight. So I've got a lot of straight lines here. And now I'm just going in with a black pen and going over my pencil lines and making them more permanent. So sketch it in with pencil first. You can always go back and erase those pencil lines afterwards. But using this plaid that has the straight lines will be very helpful to help you draw things straight. And this doesn't have to be perfect. It's very simple. And the little kids are going to sit on there and cover up most of it. So don't worry too much about what the couch looks like if you want to go this route. They don't have to sit on a couch. They can sit on the floor just as easily. I just really wanted something else, another element in my card. So I'm just going around some of the outer lines, making them a little thicker, and then I can go in with my eraser and erase those pencil lines. Now I'm just going to cut it out, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a border around the outside of my lines here. And I am going to apologize right now for my camera setup. I'm trying a different camera setup for this video, and I did not realize just how many times I kind of went off the bottom of my screen and off camera here. So I'm going to apologize now because there's going to be some other stuff that's sort of off the screen, and I'm really sorry. I can't see my camera in my new setup to see if I'm on screen or not, so it's a work in progress. I'm going in with a BG Copic here that's similar in color to the plaid, and I'm just sort of giving a little bit of shadow to some of the lines so it looks a little more three-dimensional and not so flat. Now I'm going to do some really fast coloring here because this video was getting long, so I needed to speed up a part of it, and I feel like this is the best part to speed up because the other part gets a little more complicated with the electronics of the Chibitronic light. So I'm just coloring my little kids here. I started with the little boy, putting some blue jeans on him. And I gave him an orange shirt because I thought that that popped really nicely, and that wasn't a color I was currently using in my other papers I've picked out, but it still went with the rainbow stripes that I was using for sort of the wallpaper of my little scene here. And you can see I colored the little girl with some brown hair, but I decided that I actually wanted her to have blonde hair just so they were a little bit different. So I stamped another one out, giving her some blue jeans there, and I'll just color her with some blonde hair. I'm going in with the Wire 21, so it's kind of a darker blonde color, but I felt like it was maybe too much like straw, so I added in some of the Y06 there to sort of brighten it up. But that gets covered up a little bit with my shadow here, but I think the two together gave it a nice yellow color. So for my little TV screen, I just decided to do some grays. I know most of the time our TVs are black, but I didn't want a big black spot in the middle, and I also wanted that Chibitronics to kind of glow a little more. So I decided to go in with some toner grays here and just give it some easy shading. Now, when I die cut my pieces out, my die actually moved on the little girl, and I caught it before I ran her all the way through, but she does have a cut through her little feet there, which I was showing you. But I decided that it was going to get covered up so much with the other elements that I didn't need to recolor her. So if you notice that, I just thought I'd point it out. Don't abandon it. Sometimes you can still save it. So it's going to be covered up with the little chip bag she's holding. And then I think that screen will cover it up pretty well too. So I've got my outside in stitch rectangle here. And I'm just going to cut out the stripe rainbow background first. So this is going to be sort of my back layer of my wallpaper, per se, for my little room here. Now, the yellow plaid I'm using is sort of the carpet or the ground. I cut it a little taller than I needed. And then the purple watercolor wishes I cut with the same rectangle as well, but then used a stitched simple hillside for the top to sort of make it look like a table or a countertop. So once I laid my pieces on there, I realized it was a little bit too tall, but I'd rather it be too tall where I can cut it down than too short. So once I get my pieces in here, I decided to knock down the purple a little bit too, so I'm just cutting that hillside again and making the purple a little shorter. So I've adhered down the yellow piece, and I'm just going to adhere the TV to the purple like it's sitting on the table, just the base of it. Now the purple is not glued down to the yellow just yet. It's actually going to be popped up on some foam adhesive, so don't glue that down. But this is more for placement than anything else. So I'm going to lightly trace where this ends up on my background. And then I'm going to draw inside that traced frame a smaller rectangle and erase my outside guidelines. So this is the part that I'm going to cut out. I'm going to cut a hole right in the middle because the TV is going to cover up that hole, and that is where my light is going to shine through. So I cut some lines with my craft knife just through the middle so I could get my scissors in there and cut out that square. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're never going to see it. It's smaller than the TV. Now I can mark where that is going to be on my card base. So this gives me a guide as to where to put my Chibitronics circuit that I'm going to create. I'm just trimming up things a little more. No real reason why, you're not going to see it, and I apologize again for it being off screen. So now I'm just going to sketch in sort of where my circuit is going to go, and I'm using my little guide up there in the top right. This is sort of my sketch circuit that I just keep here. I know this works, and it reminds me how to do it. So I've got the negative pointing to the left and the positive pointing to the right. I actually wrote that negative and positive on there so I remember. And I'm drawing where my tape is going to go, and my battery is going to go centered in the bottom because I'm going to make a switch there. That's where you press to make the light up. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. And the sentiment says, "Life is better when we binge watch together." I'm just going to make sure it's nice and straight. And I really wish I had spaced this out a little bit better, put the two lines a little closer together to leave a little more room for the heart that I put at the bottom, but at the time I wasn't thinking that through. If I made this again, I would know better. This is when I realized I also need to cut the hole in my couch so that we can see the light through there. So I just put it on that hole I already had, traced it on the back side, and I'm just going to cut it out with my scissors. Again, this is going to get covered up, so it doesn't matter that I cut through that little piece at the bottom because it's all going to get glued down and covered up anyway. So now that I have my hole cut in my couch, I can just line it up and glue that down to the background. So you can see right there where that light's going to shine through, and then the TV will be on top of it and cover up all of that that's going on behind. And my little kids will fit right in here. Now you want to make sure you don't put them in too far. You don't want to cover up the hole. But I did like that they're tucked kind of behind the TV That way when it sort of glows, it kind of glows on them a little bit too. So I'm going to go ahead and glue them down, even though the rest isn't glued down to the base yet. I can't adhere down this panel until I have my circuit in place. So you can see that's going to cover up that hole very nicely. So now I'm going to put my circuit together. So I've got my copper tape that comes within the Chibitronics kits, or you can buy it separately. And I'm just going to go from my positive side of that little triangle. And to do a corner, you kind of go up, fold it over on itself, and then go down. So you go away from the direction you want to go, fold it over and down. And it's really good to kind of burnish it to the card with your fingernail, or you could do it with a bone folder. And I don't have my switch made yet, so I just cut that tape a little long, and I'm going to leave it hanging until I get my switch made. So I'm just getting my lights out so I can make sure that I get the tape on the other side close enough, because you need it to touch those little metal pieces that are on that little triangle. And they're marked positive and negative on the light. So now I'm just doing the tape line for the negative side, doing the same thing. And I'm going to turn a couple corners and go to the bottom. Now this one I'm going to go all the way over and overlap that circle that I drew, which is where my battery is going to go. And I actually moved the battery up a little bit and erasing that pencil line because I realized it was a little too close to the bottom, because I'm going to need to put some foam around it to keep it in place. So I can put my little light on there and make sure it's stuck down really well. And you can see when I touch the tape to the positive side of the battery, it comes on. So now I'm going to cut a little piece of scrap paper, and this is how I'm going to make my switch. So this needs to go across the top of the paper and then fold over to the other side, and this will touch the top of the battery. So the top of the battery is the positive. You need the line to go from the positive side of the light. The bottom of the battery is the negative. So now you can see I'm putting some foam squares around this battery, and this battery is actually thinner than some of the others. It's actually a very thin circular battery, so I didn't have to use too much foam to make this work. So I'm putting the foam around it, making sure it still works. This is going to hold my battery in place too. And then I'm just checking. I like to continually check because I've done this many times and things don't work when I get it all stuck together if I don't check. So now I can go ahead and add some foam squares to this panel as well. And once I get all my foam in place, you can use tape as well. I can take off the backers and start sticking things down. So the foam is a little fatter than this battery because this battery is very thin. So sticking that switch down to the foam, it still holds it above the battery, so it's not quite touching. It'll only touch when you push it down with your finger. So I've got the adhesive backers off the adhesive on the back of this front panel. I'm just going to line it up. You can see when I touch there in the center how it lights up. And now I can add some foam, and I use the thin foam, so this isn't quite as thick because I don't want you to have to push too far down. So I didn't want to add too much more thickness to it, but these are the thin foam squares from scrapbook adhesives, so it just pops it up just slightly enough. And I put some foam in the four corners of the TV so it would lift itself up from that hole that's been cut as well. So now you can see, I've turned my light off so you can see it better, how it glows. I just think that is so fun. So to finish it off, I'm going to add some little hearts and also the little heart at the bottom that tells you where to press to make it light up. So it's kind of the place to tell you what to do to get the surprise. So I could use the die that goes with this set from the push here set to cut out this heart, but I was kind of cramped for space at the bottom, and so I'm going to fussy cut it so I don't have that extra border around the heart. So I'm just going to fussy cut that out so it's a little tighter at the bottom. And then I also had these little hearts that I just keep. They're die cut just in a drawer, and they're good for embellishing. I just cut it out of my extra cardstock when I have scrap pieces sitting around. They're good to have on hand. And here's a look at that finished card. Super cute. And here is it lit up. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.